say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
So when I look back on 9/11, I think the first thing I remember are the students I had that year. That's the one and only year I've taught a zero period, and so the attacks were happening in real time.
When I got to work, I looked up on the internet to find out what was really happening, and I was really shocked. I still couldn't believe what I was hearing and seeing was real.
And I was listening to Mark and Brian on the radio, and they had said something really vaguely about disturbance in New York, and that possibly an airplane had crashed in New York someplace.
And I remember we all just sat and looked at one another in silence for probably, it seemed like 5 minutes, but it was probably one. Because when something like that happens, what words do we really have?
And given the time that things were happening on the East Coast, the plane crashes were happening in real time in my classroom. So I think about sitting with my zero period students, listening on a radio, because we didn't have TV in our classrooms, with a scratchy antenna, just trying to get news and find out what was going on.
I am still in shock, and I'm still confused, and I still don't have the words to express the way I feel about these events.
I remember thinking it has to be an accident. It has to be something that just happened. Like, there's no way human beings could do this to other human beings. And how could people hate us so much that they would want to kill us, and kill us in droves?
A man-made disaster like that, or tragedy, just kind of makes you pause and think, why? You know, why would you take people's lives that you don't even know them?
Only later did we find out that it was the tragedy that it was, and it was quite shocking to hear something discussed so casually at first and turn out to be such a catastrophic event.
One was I felt in myself and in others just this air of suspiciousness. And the other, in this kind of contradictory sense, I felt this sense of American pride, of friendliness and of connectedness with everybody who was on the plane.
Angelou reminded us that human beings are human beings, and we couldn't forget the humanity of each other because of this.
So I listened to the voicemail, and it actually turned out to be my roommate's father. And he was calling from Oregon, and I remember his message quite vividly, and his exact words were, "Hey boys, you need to wake up and turn on the television. Bad people are doing bad things to our world. Get up and turn on the TV right now."
And I just realized this is a watershed moment in not only my life, but the history of the United States. This is my generation's, Pearl Harbor.
My mom died on that date in 1983, and for many years afterwards I would forget when that date rolled along. And now since the 9/11 has occurred, I no longer forget.
And I hope that none of you or any of our students ever have to experience anything that traumatic in the future, and that all our citizens will be safe in the future from such an awful and terrible attack.
At 8:46 a.m., American Airlines Flight 11 from Boston, with 92 aboard, traveling at a speed of 470 miles per hour, strikes the North Tower of the World Trade Center complex. At 9:03 a.m., Flight 175 crashes into the South Tower. It only lasts 56 minutes before it falls to the ground at 9:59 a.m. The North Tower then gives way and collapses as well. On this 10th anniversary of 9/11, Tower 1 is designed to evoke the memory of the Twin Towers. It will rise to exactly the same height, 1,368 feet, with an additional 400-foot antenna.
The final design, I think, is a powerful one because it is iconic and simple, and yet it is, in a way, a very strong visual relationship to the memory of the original buildings.
The footprints of the missing Twin Towers were transformed into the two largest man-made waterfalls in North America. The names of each 9/11 victim surround them, so families and all people have a place to visit their memory. The memorial pools are surrounded by an 8-acre park, filled with trees relocated from the sites of the other attacks that day at the Pentagon and the crash site of Flight 93 at Shanksville, Pennsylvania. A new museum was built to tell the story of 9/11. It surrounds 2 steel columns called tridents, the only intact remnants of the original Twin Towers. These sites will create a gateway, a train station that will welcome thousands of visitors every week. For architects, the key to a new World Trade Center was not to reconstruct the Twin Towers as they were.
This particular project is so overladen with the emotion of what we watched out our windows, the sense of the obligation, the responsibility to make this something that is positive, not just a memory of the awful thing that happened, but how we as a culture responded.
For the last 9 days, the entire world has seen for itself the state of our union, and it is strong.
9/11 changed us, not for the worse, but for the better. The memorial site, museum, and Tower 1 will represent our country's unity and strength, as it is the tallest and strongest building in American history.